Hi, my name is Sophie Summers and welcome to the Crossdressing Lifestyle channel. In today's video we're going to be taking a very detailed look at these silicone breastplates. As you can see, there are quite a few there to have a look at. That's because we've got a B, a C, a D and I believe a G cup to review in various colours or shades, and also there are various materials of construction. Some of them are cotton filled and others are silicone filled. So we're going to be having a look at those as a comparison. I'm going to be popping on one of each of them so you can see what they look like when they're physically on and measure the bust difference that you achieve by putting each and every one of them on. So if you want to see how the whole thing goes together, please join me after the break. So welcome back. In this review we're going to be looking at what I call the bib sort of design of silicone breastplate. This is a typical one here. This is the Dcup arrangement we're going to be looking at first. I've had to cover the sort of nipple area here for censorship issues because of YouTube's requirements. Now it's got a very high collar on it. The front section here fits roughly right up to your sort of jawline here, and the back area is raised a little bit more, so it goes to about the nape of your neck. Now it's made out of I think it's a oil-free silicone. It's very stretchy, and it's roughly around about 1.5, maybe 2 millimeters in thickness. As you can see here, it's quite pliable and it will go up to quite some large sort of sizes. At rest, this Dcup one here is roughly 12 inches, and that is across the sort of bottom area here, so that's about 12 inches across there. Now what we need to do is just to turn on the inside of these ones to get a little bit more of the construction detail, and one of the first things you notice is there is a little bit of a flat sort of cover here. This particular one, this Dcup one, is actually got inside of it what they call soft cotton, and as you can see from the picture here, this is what the actual soft cotton is. So it's quite squidgy, quite soft, so I think what we need to do is to have a look at the Dcup on and see what it looks like. Okay, so this is the Dcup in shade 2, which is the second shade available. I've got a tight sort of choker on here just to break the line up a little bit. My natural makeup is MAC N1, so it's a slightly lighter shade, so it doesn't quite fit in, but it gives you a good idea. So if I now step backwards a little bit so you can see the full view, and I turn on my side so you can see the projection you're going to get with this Dcup, and if I measure across the bust, my original flat measurement is roughly 40 inches. So if I measure across this one, I'm getting a dimension of roughly 43 inches. So that would mean that I'm going forward on my chest the equivalent of an extra sort of 3 inches, going forward like that. So that's a look at the Dcup in a shade 2 in a normal sort of top. So that was the Dcup. Now let's move on to the C cup. Now the one I've got here is in a much lighter colour. It's actually a shade 1. It's manufactured in exactly the same way because it is a bib construction. The difference being with this particular one is if I turn it inside out and have a look at the back, it's much flatter in here, a smaller disc area here, and the reasoning being is this particular one is actually full of silicone as opposed to soft cotton, and you can really feel the difference in both the movement because it sort of jiggles an awful lot more, all the moves all the way around. It is very squidgy here, and also the weight. This particular one weighs something like about 2.5 kilograms in weight, so there's a lot of movement and a lot of weight to put onto your chest. So let's have a look at that one. Okay, so the first thing you notice, apart from the actual mismatch in the colour, because these being shade 1 is very light, but you can really feel the weight of these silicone in sort of injected breast forms here. You can certainly feel it when you move around in the movement of them as well. So let's just step back a bit more so you can see them in a lot more detail. As I said, there's quite a bit of movement with them. The first thing, let's measure the forward projection. So originally in flat chest I'm 40, with these C ones, this measures around about 45 inches. So that's an increase of 5 inches on your chest wearing this particular one here. As I say, you can feel the weight of them coming down, and we've already established that they weigh somewhere in the region of about 2.5 kilograms. alone. So that's quite a lot of silicone in there. So looking on the side, looking on the other side, they really do have a lot of movement in them. So my first impression of wearing that particular breastplate was that the silicone in there certainly made for a much heavier breast form, but there was a lot more movement and bounce and probably a little bit more realistic than the cotton filled ones there. So that's the Gcup breastplates. Let's move on now to the Dcup. So let's get into the more buxom area, or starting with the Dcup here. It's exactly the same construction. This one I'm showing here is actually in shade 3, which is slightly darker than the previous two that we've done. As a comparison, this is a similar Dcup here, but in a shade 2. So hopefully on the camera there you can see this is slightly darker. It's quite a full cup. Again, it's a soft cotton inserts in them. Again, very, very squidgy, quite a bit of projection on them. So let's have a little look and see what that one looks like. So this is the Dcup in shade 2, and I must admit I feel very, very buxom in these particular ones. I feel like I've got quite large assets. So again, just going to step back a little bit so you can see a little bit more of the profile. On the front it feels quite sort of voluptuous. If I turn around the side you can see how much forward projection there is on these ones. So again, turn to the other side so you can see that. And lastly, let's do the acid test, as they say, with the tape measure and see how much extra I've got on my flat metal chest. So if I measure around the highest point here, I'm coming out with around about 47 and a half inches on this one. So that's quite a substantial difference on my own natural chest size. So again, a little bit to the side so you can see them. There's not quite so much movement in these because these are cotton filled. So I don't feel exactly the same sort of movement as I did in the last pair. So that was the quite impressive Dcup range there. So if you really do want to make an impression, let's have a look at this Gcup, which is the largest one in the range to my knowledge of these silicone breastplates. This one here again is in the colour 2, and this is quite an impressive sort of a beastie here. It weighs just a touch under 2 kilograms, and that's quite weighty considering it's full of just soft cotton. So again, since the body's been scaled up, at the end of the video here in the summary we are going to give you a little bit of a chart of all the relevant dimensions for each one of these breastplates, so please stay with us for that. But let's have a little look at see what it's like to actually wear one of these and how impressive they are. And finally, let's get to the big one in the range, which is the Gcup. As you can see, it's quite voluptuous here. I need to step back a little bit more so you can get the full benefit. It's actually literally pulling up my crop top around here. So from the front view, it's quite a large cleavage on it. If I turn sideways, then you get the full benefit of how much extra projection you get. Again, back to the front and to the sides, so you can get them in its fullest glory. And finally, let's just take the tape measure around, see how much extra projection we get underneath the arm and right around the front. And this is coming out around about 49 and a quarter inches, which is not a great deal more than the Dcup, but it certainly feels a lot more. As I say, these ones are full of cotton or soft cotton. If they were full of silicone, I think because of the sheer mass of them, they would be very, very heavy indeed, and probably a bit too much to be pulling down. So I would certainly consider that when you're purchasing any. So there we go with the final one, which is the very impressive Gcup there. I just wanted to summarise a few things there, a couple of positive points, and maybe point out a few things that I found a little bit more difficult when I was wearing them. The first thing you may have noticed in some of those presentations there was that my face seemed to be all sort of squished and squashed up a bit sort of puffy. And that is because generally around the neck area here on quite a few of those breastplates is quite tight, and it seemed to push up everything underneath your chin a little bit. So that would be one thing I would look for. Also, I would say that because it's quite a high neck like this, they do look okay if you kind of got your chin down, but it's very difficult to find something, in my opinion anyway, to go around the line there to break it up between your natural skin and the breastplate itself. Maybe you would need to consider maybe cutting around the neckline a bit more to lower it a bit more and personalize it to your own sort of look and your own feel. So that would be one of the comments I would make there. Getting them on was a bit tricky to start with, because you know, once you got it over your head, you had to push it away from your makeup, and it's quite tight all the way over, particularly the B-cup ones. I think they're quite small, the B-cup ones, and it had a tendency to roll, or they have a tendency to roll at the back a bit and get caught. But once you perfected the technique, they were quite easy to put on. The other thing, obviously, when you're wearing something of a close nature like a silicone breastplate like this, you do get quite warm. I did notice after about 5-10 minutes of wearing it, my body temperature started to go up quite high. So I would give it a bit of serious thought about wearing one during the summer, or particularly if I was going clubbing. Now, what we did promise was that we would do an overview of the dimensions of the breastplates to give you a little bit more of an idea, and hopefully popping up over here now as I'm talking away will be some of the schematics of the breastplates and also some of the colours, so you can verify those. I believe that there are about 5 colours from shade 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, where 5 is a very dark, sort of an ebony colour there. So I hope you enjoyed and found that particular review of interest. If you did, please give it a good old thumbs up. That keeps us encouraged to keep producing the many wide and varied videos that we do. If you've not already subscribed to our channel, please consider doing so. It does help us, and again, it does inspire us. And that's really it all for now. So all I really need to say is please stay with us, and as always, stay gorgeous.